So someone asked me why Nocturne was my favorite expansion on Reddit, and rather than typing up a long response, I thought maybe I would just explain it verbally, mostly because I'm lazy. Um, so this is kind of just an off-the-cuff thing. Yeah, but anyway, Nocturne is my favorite Dominion expansion. It still is, even after the release of Menagerie, which I think is really good as well. Of course, I love every Dominion expansion to some degree, even Alchemy on some days. Um, how do I put this? To me, the thing that makes Nocturne stand out is just that everything in the set is interesting, and nothing is uh, especially overpowered. I mean, maybe with the exception of Magic Lamp in some games. Uh, yeah, and I really like that about the set. Like nothing feels like it shouldn't be in the game, I guess, or it like is over centralizing or anything like that. And everything feels like it does something cool. Okay, so new stuff in the set. First, we've got the night cards. Um, what this does is it adds an extra phase to the game after the buy phase, and you see a lot of people, I guess, on Board Game Geek and stuff like that, say they don't like the added complexity that it kind of ruins the ABC structure that the game normally has. And I don't know, maybe it's just me. I never had a problem with that. I think like this is a really interesting wrinkle to add to the game. Like it's a new way to do stuff on your turns. It's more options, I guess, more like interesting things to account for. And I guess that could be overwhelming if you're a more casual player, but it never bothered me. Heirlooms, of course, these are special treasures that replace your starting coppers, and they're attached to specific cards in the set. I don't see why any Dominion player would have a problem with these. Like, I think they're just an awesome idea, and I might go over some more in specific in a little bit. But yeah, I really like all the heirlooms, and I don't think I would change any of them except maybe Lucky Coin, but I guess I'll get into that. I guess my only problem with them is that they're attached to a specific card. And so sometimes it's kind of lame, like, oh, I don't want to play this game with Pixie or whatever. I don't know. Like, but I mean, really, if you're playing in real life, I guess you could just play with them however you wanted. Of course, I only play online, so it doesn't really apply to me. No, also, something else added in Nocturne was the Fate and Doom cards, which give out boons and hexes. Um, so an interesting thing, I guess, is like Nocturne was in development while I was still playtesting Dominion. And you can find me in the credits as a playtester for Adventures and Empires. During Empires is when Donald came up with several of the cards that ended up in Nocturne. Um, and initially, I had this reaction that boons were just going to be bad for the game and that they were a terrible idea. But I have to say, I've really warmed to them over the years. I mean, they're random, sure, but I don't think, like, I don't know, none of them bother me in particular. Like, I really enjoyed the boons. Like, they're kind of like soft bonuses that you get. Like, every now and then you get like Moon's Gift and it does nothing, whatever. But most of them are pretty cool. Some of them can be like mildly game warping, but never so much. Like getting Flames Gift very rarely is such a huge advantage that the other player has to resign or something like that. I don't know. I think the boons are pretty nicely designed, and that's due in part to the fact that they were developed really as early as Empire's testing. Uh, Hexes are a little bit less of a good addition to the game, I think. Yeah, some of them I think are a little annoying, like diluted, but like on the whole, they don't bother me. Mostly they're kind of benign or like at least give you some kind of interesting decision you have to make. And I like them a whole lot better than just cursing and discard attacking as like just, I don't know, the only thing a card can do. So, okay. But I guess the question was, why do I like Nocturne? Well, it's got all of that interesting stuff that adds new elements to the game, um, kind of like as one big sample platter. And to me, that's just really compelling. I like having all of that extra stuff in the game. I don't care that there's like there's a bunch of fiddly setup bits. Actually, like when I'm playing real life games. I kind of enjoy the extra setup. Maybe I'm weird. There's probably some gamers like that. I don't know. Maybe it comes from the fact that I used to make board games when I was a kid and stuff like that. I don't know. I like having little extra fiddly things. Simplicity is nice too. Like Renaissance is a cool expansion, but like this is more up my alley personally. Um, okay, so real quick, I guess I'll go over some of the cards and why I like them, why I think they're interesting. Okay, so Druid, it's um it's got like the three boons set aside, which is like I think really neat because it kind of changes game to game. Like sometimes you're gonna get a really cool Druid, sometimes it's not that great, but it's always cheap, so it's like I don't know, like it's always something like you might choose to go for and try out. And I think that's really neat. Like I like that it's never like a super OP card, even if you get like Will-O-Wisps and the plus action one or something to make it like really good. Yeah, I don't know. I never feel like Druid is super OP. It just can lead to interesting decks. Um, Faithful Hound, I think, is one of the coolest cards in Dominion. Just figuring out like little tricks you can do with it is really satisfying, rewarding, what have you. Uh, Guardian, it's one of the weaker additions to the set, like 'cause it's basically Lighthouse, but it's fine. I mean, I feel like Dominion needs more defense cards personally, especially since like there are more cards in the game now. Yeah, like if there was a card I was gonna cut, it would probably be this one, maybe. Monastery, I think, is a really interesting trasher. It's very unique. Like it has like strengths and weaknesses compared to other trashers, and I don't have much else to say about that. I think it's pretty cool. Pixie, I feel like it's just a lot of fun. Like sure, it's random, but um, you can actually hold on to the pixie instead of taking the boon, and that's pretty nice. And it's always in the kingdom with goat, which leads to like really fast games that are kind of interesting. So yeah, I enjoy Pixie. Tracker, like people are still debating whether this card is good or not to this day, and I mean I think it's a pretty interesting one. And Pouch is a pretty cool heirloom to have. Um, yeah, one thing that's nice about Tracker is like people underrate the top decking, which is actually like extremely good in some situations, and it's like rewarding when you figure out those situations. And occasionally you get a cool boon when you play it too. Like, oh man, I recall a game early on in Nocturne's existence. I think it was like Freaky was playing a league game or something, and he opened with three trackers or something, and everyone said he was crazy, but he won the game. Yeah, I think it's an interesting card. Um, Changeling, like, there's no card that does anything like Changeling, really. It's so weird. It's kind of annoying on the online interface, but I really like it. I think it's a cool card and never particularly feels overpowering, even when it has like a crazy combo. So yeah, I think it's neat. It's a good like case, like a case study of like what I'm talking about when I say like the cards are interesting but not overpowering. I think yeah, Changeling is a good example. And Fool, of course, it's kind of a trap card, but it's also pretty good in like certain kinds of decks, and it's like cool to figure out when to use them. I do think like it's probably one of the least elegant design cards in the game, but I don't know. I think it was probably worth it in the end. Like I still get it like a regular amount, and um, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Lucky Coin because I think it makes money decks a little too good. But it is nice if you're playing an engine and it lets you get your economy without having to purchase it. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Like and like sometimes you pass up on Fool and you still use Lucky Coin. So yeah, it's not really a wash. Ghost Town, I think, is a very interesting village. I don't have much. It's like village plus caravan. Really strong the turn you buy it. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I wouldn't want to see the game without it, for sure. Um, Leprechaun is yeah cool because like I mean I think it's like mostly a really bad card, but then there's those games where you can play it twice for wishes or something, where it's amazing. Or I don't know, just like really complicated engines where Leprechaun pays off are always a lot of fun. Yeah, I like this card a lot. I think it's just a great design. Night Watchman, I mean, it's okay. Like nothing amazing, but you can do stuff like guarantee you get a certain card in your first shuffle that I think is really, you know, worth the printing of it, I suppose. Secret Cave, I think, is just a great card design. Like, I really like its play effect. I also really enjoy the Magic Lamp, like the little mini game it adds to Dominion. Um, like, sure, I guess like sometimes it can swing a game too wildly in somebody's favor, but I mean, I feel like often that's just because they prepared for the Secret Cave better. Sometimes it's RNG, but sometimes it's not. But yeah, I don't know. I also really like the on-play effect. The spiking is pretty neat. Um, and I mean, it's a cantrip, so yeah, I mean, it's a cool card, right? Bard, like it's one of the weaker cards in the set, but it's not bad. Like, like it's not completely terrible. Um, yeah, and it's not like offensive or anything like that. I don't know why anyone would get mad about Bard being in the game. Blessed Village, I think it's a really popular card. It's a village, you get a boon when you buy it. I mean, people buy it like crazy. What's the problem? It's cool. Cemetery, like probably one of the most interesting trashers in the game. Um, I think it's really, really strong, but it's also got like weaknesses. It adds a victory card to your deck. And sometimes it's pretty helpful. Then the Haunted Mirror is an interesting heirloom because you never know if you want to get it or not. I guess initially you really got to think about it, and I like that. Like I like that the ghost isn't always good, and sometimes it's worth it to just get rid of Haunted Mirror and not worry about it. Um, yeah, Conclave. I think it's kind of a weird pseudo village type thing. It's interesting enough. It's an okay card. Not one of my favorites. Devil's Workshop. I think this card is great. Um, yeah, like it does so many things. I don't know. You just have to play with it a lot, and then you start to like realize how good it is after a while. Gaining the imps is probably the strongest thing it does, which is not immediately apparent, I guess, when you start using it. But sometimes it's good for that gold too at the start of the game. Yeah, I don't know. I really love this card. Exorcist. I think it's just so cool. Creating spirits, like having a deck full of will-o-wisps and imps, maybe a ghost or two, but also like it's a pretty good trasher as well. Um, I mean, I could gush about most of these cards. Necromancer is so neat. Like often the decks are a little disappointing, or like they help your opponent too much, but they're interesting. That's the thing about it. Like, it doesn't really matter if it's good or bad if it makes the game interesting. And I feel like Necromancer games are really cool, and something like I would not want to not be in Dominion. Shepherd, like I think people thought this was overpowered at first, but they kind of mellowed out since then. It's a good draw option, but obviously has big weaknesses. You got to make this deck with a bunch of victory cards in it, and that can limit you. But it can also be really, really strong. Skulk, I mean, I think like often this is like an auto buy open for a lot of people, and it's a pretty cool attack on its on, and it gives you the gold for 4. I don't know, like I think it's neat. um, do I have to go on? Do I have to go on? Do we get the idea? Like, yeah, Cobbler is not great. Crypt, sure, it's weak, but I think it's a really interesting effect. Like basically saving coppers and stuff for later turns. Sometimes it can be decently strong. Cursed Village, of course, really great draw to X deck card. And it's got that interesting buy clause that can make it not worth it at times. Den of Sin, really cool draw card. It's really nice for your next turn, like after you buy it specifically, but you can also rely on it for drawing. It's very strong. It's probably, I mean, I think it's the strongest card in the set, but some people say Vampire is better. I don't know. Like, I think it's really strong and really cool, and I don't know why you would dislike it. Then Idol, like, this is the card all newbies love to buy online, and they'll buy like 10 of them, and then I'll wonder what the heck they're doing. But yeah, I don't know. It's still pretty neat. Like, it's a fun little mini game to go for. See if you can get 2 in play. Um, Puka, I think this is an interesting card. Like, a lot of people kind of devalue or like I don't know how to put it. Like, they definitely underestimate it. It's a good draw card. Like trashing a treasure for 4 draw. Like, the good thing about it is the draw, not the trashing. Like, that's what you got to get your head around. But also Cursed Gold. People complain about it. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess people don't like field bad cards, but I enjoy like the decision. Like having to pick whether like it's worth taking a curse to get a strong card or not. Um, yeah, so I think Puka does nothing but add interesting decisions to the game. even if it's a weak card, like I think it's really cool. Yeah, Sacred Grove. Um, yeah, it's an interesting payload card for sure. Like it's double-edged, but often totally worth it. Just kind of depends. Um, I probably tried to go for it a little more than I should. Like, there's something attractive about it. Tormentor, like this is one of my favorite cards in this set because initially I thought it was really bad, but now I think it's really good. The best thing about it is gaining an imp early in the game with it, and then later using it as an attack. You can stack Tormentors, that's really fun. Yeah, I think like this is probably one of my favorite attacks in Dominion, actually, because it's not like too overly powerful, but it can be pretty significant. So yeah, interesting card. Tragic Hero, like this is a great card. Like it gets better and better the more skilled you are at the game, I suppose. Because like initially you probably wouldn't think it was worth having a card you were going to lose that has this effect, when in fact, like you can just pull off some seriously crazy mega turns with this. Um, Not too much else to say about it other than that. It's a very strong card. Um, yeah, Vampire. Who doesn't love Vampires? Look at her. She's so cute. She's so cute, right? And it's got the whole bat thing, and it attacks. It does everything. It slices, it dices, it gains fives. It's awesome. It's a great card. Like, who doesn't want a card that turns into a bat and back again? Come on. So cool. And then Werewolf. Come on, who doesn't love Werewolf? It's either a draw or an attack. You gotta pick one or the other. I probably buy it less than I used to. It's also four types. It's four types. Come on. And Raider, yeah, Raider sucks. But it's kind of interesting when it works out, you know? All right. Where was I? Like, what was I talking about? Why do I like Nocturne so much? Yes, it's because all of the cards are interesting. Like, what? I went through all of these and there was maybe one or two I thought weren't that interesting. And there are no cards in the set that I dislike. That's an important thing. Like, Empires, I think, is a great set, but it has Chariot Race. Adventures, um, that's also a great set, but it has the Travelers, which I'm really tired of playing with. In Nocturne, I'm not tired of any of these cards. I really enjoy them, find them really rewarding to play with, and I wish everyone loved Nocturne as much as I do. And I don't know, hopefully this explains why I like the set. Um, like, I guess I can see why people who only play in real life don't like Nocturne, but I just can't agree with them, man, because I think this is so interesting. And we really need sets like this to breathe new life into the game if Dominion's going to continue indefinitely, I think. Yeah, I would rather have this than stuff like Renaissance over and over again, where it's just like kind of doing simple things over and over again. I mean, I just want deeper, more complex mechanics um, with like questionable viability, I suppose. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Just kind of a lukewarm slash cold takes in response to a Reddit post, but I don't know. I enjoy this kind of thing. Hopefully you do too.